Thank you for tuning into this episode of Forno and Forum. Again, my name is Nat Garofalo. I'm your host. And today we have a very, very special treat for you. It's an appetizer that I grew up with in my family that, from what I've heard, a lot of my friends and even my girlfriend hasn't experienced it before they knew me. So it's unique to my family. I'm sure other folks of Italian descent have experienced this. But what we'll be making today is fried zucchini flowers. Yes, you heard me correctly. It's zucchini flowers. So if you guys, any of you guys out there have your own garden where you grow tomatoes, peppers, things like that, if you grow zucchini, prior to the zucchini actually growing itself, it will produce a blossom, and you can pluck the blossom and use that to fry up in batter like we're going to do today, or some folks actually use those flowers for a salad. So again, the focus of today's episode is going to be fried zucchini flowers. The co-star, for lack of a better term, is going to be the batter that we're using. The batter is pretty versatile. Yeah, you can use it on other things. My mom has used this batter for green tomatoes. I've used them for makeshift onion rings. We've also used it for batter for jalapenos, which we fried up in oil. So we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off here. Like I mentioned, we're making the fried zucchini flowers today. This is what we're going to be looking at. These are our ingredients, our zucchini flowers. I'll give you a close-up of what it looks like before we get into it. So this is a zucchini flower, and this guy still has the stem on it and everything. So when you're ready to go, you'll just want to pluck the stem. It'll pull this guy out. Just make sure there's no critters hanging around in there. Since you pulled it from your garden, there might be ants, a spider, etc. So just make sure all the critters are gone before you decide to use it for what you're going to do for your cooking. And you'll want to rinse your flowers as well. These have already been pre-rinsed ahead of time. You'll want to rinse them to make sure they're clean and ready to go into the oil and the batter. Just to make sure there's no dirt or anything on there. We'll also be using salt, not the whole bowl, about a quarter cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. If you don't have freshly grated, that's fine, just use a quarter cup. A cup of flour, 1 egg, black pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder. And then I already mentioned the salt, and all that's pretty much to taste. The salt, since there's a lot of flour involved, you'll probably want to go a good couple teaspoons worth of salt, if not a little bit more. You can always adjust your recipes. If you do 2 teaspoons this time and it's too salty, back it down a bit. If you do 2 teaspoons and it's not quite where you want it salt-wise, kick it up a little bit and go from there. As far as the oil that we're frying it in, it's just basic corn oil. For a pan of this size, I use about a cup. Your goal is to get the oil to just above cover the bottom. So you don't want your flowers fully submerged, but you don't want them just resting in oil like if you were making like an omelet or something too. So we're going to go ahead and get going here as far as mixing our batter. So like I mentioned, we've got our 1 cup of flour. And the way I like to do this is I like to add in my dry ingredients first. And like I said, the salt's going to be probably about 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt. All right, because obviously your flour at its base is not going to have very much flavor, so you're going to need the help from the salt to kind of bring that out. A little garlic powder. This is probably a good, maybe half teaspoon of garlic powder, and an equivalent of black pepper. Okay. Your Parmesan cheese. And remember, this is a quarter cup of Parmesan cheese, freshly grated. Okay. Get that mixed up here real good. You just want to get that nice and incorporated. Obviously, we're going to mix it all up once we get the egg and the water in there. And then for this, when we actually do go to mix it, you're going to want to use a spoon. I've attempted to do this before with a whisk, and it's a disaster. So use a spoon or use a fork, just don't use a whisk. Obviously, you want to take some care here to make sure you don't get any shells in the flour. Don't want to chew on that in your batter. Okay. And don't get water in your frying pan. That's bad as well. Okay. Let's try and get the egg and the flour incorporated here a little bit before I start adding my water. And as far as the water goes, you want to start with about a half a cup. This operates like anything that you're making with flour, depending on the day and the region that you're in and the mood that the flour's in. You may have to add more, less, etc. So I like to start with a half a cup and then go from there. The consistency you're looking for is slightly thinner than pancake batter. So here's your half a cup of water. And then, if as far as the salt, the garlic powder, and the black pepper, once you get this all mixed up, you're welcome to give it a taste and see if it's got your desired saltiness. If by chance it's a little bit too salty for you, you can always add a little bit more flour or a little bit more water to dilute the saltiness. So after that first half cup of water, we're still a little bit too thick, so I'm going to add some more water in there to kind of thin this out. Again, like I mentioned, we're looking for consistency that's similar to that of pancake batter, if not a little bit thinner. Because you want the batter to stick to the zucchini flour, but you don't want it to be too thick where it's just going to clump up on you. And if it's too thin, it's not going to adhere properly to the flour or whatever you're using the batter for. I'm just going to add a teeny bit more water. We're almost there. Okay. All right. So this is kind of a consistency that we're looking for here. It sticks, but it's still pretty loose. Okay, this is good. All right. So then from here, we're ready to go. We're going to get these guys fried up. So again, our little zucchini flowers here. So I recommend having your bowl with the batter as close to the frying pan as possible. We're doing this on medium, roughly. You don't want to scorch your zucchini flowers, otherwise the batter is going to burn. It's not going to be very tasty. You want a nice even heat. So yeah, like I recommended, you want to have the batter as close to the frying pan as possible so you don't create a mess as you're transferring from the bowl to the frying pan. And then there might be splattering, so just keep an eye out for that. With anything frying, you always want to be safe. And then I do recommend having a preparation plate ready to go with some paper towel to sop up any of the oil once these guys are done. So we've already got some splattering going on here. Oh, and when you're doing this at home, what I do recommend, since you're going to have to rinse out and clean your zucchini flowers, do that well in advance so that the zucchini flowers have some time to dry, because the wetter they are, the more splattering you're going to encounter. And it doesn't take too long per side. So by the time I get this guy in, the first guy is going to be ready to flip. I'm just gonna do one more and then we'll turn that first guy. Okay. And right now my oil's a little bit too hot, so I'm gonna lower this guy a little bit. Woo, a little splatter. Woo. Okay. Yeah, so this particular recipe, it's been in my family for a while. We always had this, when I was growing up, my mom would make it as an appetizer with a meal. Sometimes she'd make it as like an afternoon snack of some kind. Obviously, this we would only have in summertime because it's dependent upon the garden. So I highly doubt you'll be able to go to a grocery store and find zucchini flowers that you can fry up in your kitchen. So if you do have a garden and you're growing zucchinis, when they start to blossom, you can use these guys to make a tasty snack. And then as always, you'll be able to find the full recipe with the measurements and everything down in the description section. So please keep an eye out for that in case you weren't able to keep track of the measurements while I was doing it here. Okay. Then as I take this guy out, I'll show you what you're kind of looking for as far as color. You're looking for kind of a golden brown. Sorry, there we go. Kind of a golden brown, not too burned. Okay. We're going to finish frying these guys up and then we'll check back in and we'll show you what the full finished product looks like. So just give us a few minutes and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We've got our zucchini flowers all fried up. Just to recap again for you, this was a zucchini flower recipe, which is fried zucchini flowers. The recipe is my mom's batter, and the zucchini flowers actually come from our garden, so you might have a tough time finding these unless you have a garden of your own where you're growing zucchini. The awesome thing is, though, that this particular batter is pretty versatile, so you can use it on tomatoes, you can use it on mushrooms. I've attempted, like I said before, to use this for onion rings. Something actually I want to try as well with this is using it for pickle chips calamari. It'd be a nice batter for some calamari. It's got that good thickness to it. Like I showed you guys before, it'll stick real nice to calamari or pickle chips. Like I said, but in this particular instance, we were using it for fried zucchini. And this is what our finished product looks like. And like I said, my mom used to always make this for us as kids for like a snack after school. Sometimes she'd make it as an appetizer or a side dish with dinner. So it's pretty versatile. Again, it's contingent upon if you have a garden, A. B, if you're growing zucchinis in your garden. But if, again, like I mentioned, if you're not doing that, the batter is pretty versatile. Again, just to go over the ingredients, it's a cup of flour, 1 egg, salt, pepper, and garlic to taste, but I'll have the specific measurements for that in the description below. Also, it's about half a cup of water. You may have to add a little bit more like I did today, depending on what your conditions are. About a cup of oil to fry in. Also, one of the ingredients was a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, freshly grated. If you don't have access to freshly grated, whatever you have is fine. And like I mentioned before, all of the ingredients and their measurements will be down below in the description section. Again, as always, please like, share, comment. Especially the comments. I want to know if you A, made the batter, B, if you had zucchini flowers to make with the batter, and if you didn't, what did you use the batter for? Did you make fried mushrooms? Did you actually have zucchini, cut that up, fry that? Did you maybe make some fried green tomatoes? Whatever, leave that in the comments or any modifications you may have made to the batter itself. But again, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Forno and Forum and one of my family's traditional recipes, fried zucchini flowers. And tune in on our next recipe.